All right, welcome to the On Purpose podcast, where we're doing the addition of the Kingdom Indicator behavior indicators. And this is number 7, Congruency of Being.
Oh, nice.
Being the real deal. We know nothing about. Kurt, can you distinguish what congruency of being and being the real deal means to you?
Yes, that's one of my favorites. This really came to life for me when I was operating inside of another campus another time. And what I noticed is the leaders leading the programs didn't didn't practice what they preached. And then the higher I got in the organization, I noticed more and more leaders, like less and less did they practice what they preached. And I just, for a long time just thought it was me, or there's something I didn't get, or some deep subtlety or whatever. And I have a different conclusion now. And the conclusion that I have now is that it's very rare that anybody practices what they preach. It's very rare that for anyone that you ever meet, what they say is what they do, and how their being is completely consistent with what they say. Um, there's another conversation that goes side by side with it called calcification, and it's any organization I've ever experienced or even heard of, read about, whatever, governments, companies, institutions. Um, Oftentimes there's a beautiful intention at the beginning. You take a church or take the United States of America. That's a good one. So United States of America, like this really like it's this radical experiment in how to run a country for the people, by the people. That is beautiful, especially in the time in which it came about. Countries were coming out of feudalism, and well, no, I mean that's a little bit out of sequence, but a little bit further away. But the people who started the United States came from tyrannical governments in Europe, and they wanted to try something different. Instead of having a few people running the show, a few people having all the power, they wanted to try having a government where there was actually freedom of speech, freedom of movement, freedom of thought, and run by the people for people, not run by a few rich people for rich people, but literally, by the people for the people. That's a beautiful intention. I mean, that's just gorgeous. And I believe the United States is probably still the best country in the world, just in terms of freedom and creativity and people having space to be and that kind of stuff. But if you really look at what's been going on for the last few decades, it's very far from for the people, by the people. So that intention got lost somewhere. So that's calcification, right? People following the rules, doing what they think they're doing, what they're told, without any connection to why they're doing it, what the original intention was. So in government, in the United States government, you have all these bureaucrats and who don't really know anything about anything. They just have their whole job and they do their job, and they have no connection to why their job is important or isn't important, or why it was originally created. And then you have the calcification of people, fewer and fewer people moving into greater and greater seats of power. And so over time, it's actually very few people running the country for themselves. So that's calcification. So congruency is really the opposite of that. It's like being at the source of what you're doing. You know why you're doing what you're doing. Why you're doing what you're doing has a purposeful, you know, uh, principle or value attached to it. When you speak, you're literally revealing who you actually are and what you actually think. And it's kind of like a great analogy is a bullfighter. So a bullfighter is standing across the field from a bull who is trying to, kill him, and the bullfighter's got a red cape, right? So, and then as the bull approaches, the bull's going for the red cape, and as the bull approaches, the bullfighter just very, very smoothly moves beside the red cape, unnoticed by the bull, and the bull, hits the cape. So that's how most people use communication. They have a mask. They know how they want to be perceived by the world. They work really hard at it. They know how they're supposed to be, or how they have a strong opinion about how they think the world needs them to be or wants them to be. And they're very clear if they step out of the correct, the agreed upon set of beliefs or, actions or words that you're allowed to use, that there's a punishment, there's a consequence. So it's really understandable why people hide behind their words, and it's understandable why people are not at the source of what they're doing. But being congruent is working through all that. It's like it's like getting in touch with who you are, doing the work to uncover or create like a divine purpose or a purpose of some sort bigger than yourself. It's then speaking that and having your being and your actions line up with what you say. Now, that all sounds very simple, do what you say and say what you do, but it really is incredibly rare. And so, congruency of being is this idea of being the real deal, being who you actually say you are, and who you say you are is actually who you are. What you do is a direct correlate to who you say you are, and who you say you are is a direct correlate to what you do. This is one of the things that attracted me to John when I first met him. I met him at a transformational workshop in Austin 5, 6, 7 years ago, something. And there were a bunch of leaders, 5 or 6, 7 leaders leading, and me and John were two of them. And this was an event I was known for like being impressed by no one. I've been leading little workshops at this thing for a couple of years, and people would ask me, "What do you think of this? What do you think of this guy? What do you think of that person? What do you think? What do you think I heard?" Da, da, da. And I was just never impressed with anyone. And then John walks in one day. I had no idea who he was, but I was just in the audience, and he was going on right before me. I was next, and he began talking, and I noticed something different about him. And I noticed there was a quality about him that it was very clear to me. I'm not sure, I can't really say why, but it was very clear to me. He was who he said he was, and who he said he was actually is what he was. And as I looked around the room and see, like, is anybody else noticing this? It was also clear to me that no one else saw that he was any different than anyone else. Like I'm pretty sure I was the only one who noticed, and like that really got my attention. So at the end of the day, I made sure to connect with him, and sort of, I guess the rest is history. But it's a quality that people don't really recognize it for exactly what it is, because there's no people don't see people don't see what's in front of them. They see themselves in what's in front of them. People don't see you for who you are. They see what they are in you, right? So if someone doesn't have an awareness of congruency of being the real deal, it's very difficult for them to recognize it in another. People just look the same, I guess. But in being a leader and leading a movement and leading a leadership team, or just whatever, just anything, company, just anything, if you are literally the principles and values that you espouse, like there's no break between what you say and what you do and how you're being, it does impact people, even if they don't understand what it is that's impacting them. And this is something that John and I have really cultivated within ourselves and in our community. And we stand by it and stand for it, and train it and teach it and talk about it. And it's been incredibly valuable in our movement and our programs and in our community. Um, the opposite literally is hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is saying one thing and doing another. And so that is so well known. You would think that the opposite would be equally well known, but very few people I've heard even talk about it. Now, congruency of being is kind of our term for it. So if other people are talking about it, they probably wouldn't use that term possibly. But I don't really hear people ever having conversations about the degree to which people's words and what they talk about are a direct correlate or not a direct correlate to what they're doing and how they're being. So for me, it's something that I got from another organization because of the absence of it.
Mhm.
So you can learn in two really powerful ways. One is um, experiencing the absence of something and realizing the importance of it, like integrity and congruency and that kind of stuff. And the other is being in an environment where that is in abundance and also seeing it and appreciating how powerful and beautiful that it is. So yeah, I'll pause there. So that's congruency of being.
Yeah, that there's a lot jam-packed in what you just said. And one, I'm present to the intention of why we're even doing these kingdom behavior indicators. And it's to assist people in walking in closer relationship with the characteristics of God and to see where people are at and, like just assess where are you inside of all of these conversations, inside of um, your walk with Him. And so when you notice a misalignment, like, wow, that's okay, that's not really, that's not it. Like,
Who you're being is not what you were talking about yesterday.
yeah, your behavior is showing
It's,
something different right here.
yes,
There's something off.
yes,
Um,
yes.
how did you first realize that? Like when you were going through your walk with this, how did you notice your misalignments and get back into alignment, not from presentation?
Well, painfully, and it was. I didn't notice it. Let me just pause for a second. What I remember, all this is quite some time ago now, but what I remember is really trusting and really being open-hearted with the leadership that I was working with. Like I was so taken by sort of my initial experiences, and those experiences made such a big difference for me, like just life altering, never going back, perhaps, the biggest blessing ever in my life. So I was really like just open-hearted and trusting. And then just time and time and time again, someone would show up who I was supposed to, follow, supposed to listen to. And it just wasn't, it just wasn't consistent. Like it just wasn't. One incident is I was in the middle of leading a leadership program, and one day I had a new manager. I mean, literally, I asked for so and so, then someone else comes on the phone, and this first person I was very close to, and we produced amazing results together. Like we were connected. We were a really effective team. One of the most effective teams that organization has ever experienced. And this new person shows up, and I kind of surprised and took a minute, took a breath, and then I recovered. And I said, "Well, okay, great, welcome." I said, "Would you like to hear the intention I've created for the classroom tonight?" And her response was, "Your intention, you're not here to fulfill your intention. You're here to fulfill my intention. And if you're not going to do that, I'll find somebody who will." I'm just like, I could not believe I could not believe what this person just said to me. By the way, that was exactly how I was trained to prepare for the thing I was about to read. So I was absolutely following the rules and doing the thing. And what I got met with was scorn and threat and that kind of stuff. And and that just turned out to be one of really a bunch of examples. And so it's this really painful. It was a really painful experience of realizing it's I've heard it said it's much easier to lie to someone than to tell them than to have them believe they've been lied to. And so it was really painful for me and very difficult. It took time, actually, like way more time than it would today. But it was really a painful, slow experience of waking up to, oh, yeah, it's actually not me. Because my first impulse was, well, I'm clearly missing something, or I misspoke, or something. But after a while, it's like, no, 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 it's not me. This is how I've been trained to do the thing, and my results are good, and the people that I'm working with are really getting value. So it's not me. And then once you start to see it, you start to see it everywhere. And so it was like really painful for me. It's really painful for me. The work that we were doing and the subtleties and the nuances, like I was really deeply committed to it and studied and applied myself and worked hard and tried to integrate it to my life and share it so other people, like I was really, really, really all the way in and trying my best to be open hearted, open minded. I'm not saying I was perfect, but I was committed and industrious and humble, and just so over the next few years, like I just started noticing it more and more. And the more I moved up the leadership track, if you will, sort of moving up the food chain for kind of a crass analogy, that phenomenon was more not less common but more common. The more I interacted with more experienced leaders, that more this was prevalent, and so um, uh, years later, when I stopped being with the organization, uh, I was deeply committed that whatever I got involved in the future, like it would be consistent. I didn't come up with congruency of being. It was later, like when I was developing my own, the distinctions that we do here. But um, yeah, it was really a painful experience for me. And I still notice, I was just thinking about this today, actually. I still notice that I have resistance to being open to how dysfunctional that organization was. I don't know how it is now, but I assume it's worse because I think it had a trajectory of getting worse. But um, it was really painful to open up to. And I notice I'm still clouded a little bit in, I want my initial assessments to be true.
Mm.
Of what my initial, what I fell in love with and what I got so much value and what I shared about and what I taught and preached and all this stuff. Like I wanted that to be the whole story, but it just isn't. And then so as I started to take a leadership role here in this organization, that was really front and center for me. Like this is important. This is important. And John was completely on board. And John is that and was that when I met him, but he didn't have that articulation for it. And when he heard it, it was like he and I just like clicked, like, yes, 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 this is going to be a pillar of our organization. And so it's not that I noticed it in myself first, and I'm sure it was there, to some degree, but I ran into like a brick wall, a very painful brick wall of all of a sudden I'm surrounded by incongruency, hypocrisy, and like the filter got taken away in that particular incident, and it's like, oh, and then I started seeing it everywhere. Um, so yeah, that's that's when I
Thank
first
you.
started really becoming aware of it. Yeah, you're welcome.
Mm. So the next question is, when you're walking in a posture, you're like you're spirit led, you're going this way, and when it contradicts what the public or what people are going to uh, think, how do you confront that? How do you think
Very
about
little anymore. Uh, at the beginning of this journey with Earthwaking, I was the CEO for a few years at the beginning, and I was concerned about reputation because uh, we were really new, we were fledgling, like we had very few people who were all in, like count on one or two hands. A lot of people like show up to things, but all in as like willing to pick up some weight and take responsibility for stuff. And um, I had this image that we're at the very beginning of something. And when you're at the very beginning of something, 1 or 2 degrees off magnifies infinitely over time. Like if this is the direction and you're a couple degrees off over time, that's massive. And so I was really, um, would often confront or engage or talk to people about misperceptions because in my past, I've noticed that people get a little misperception, and a week later it's quite a bit, and a month later it's huge, and 3 months later they've got an army and pitchforks and torches, and they're marching towards your house at midnight. So I'm sure I was overpendulated, but I'm also sure that um,
Overpendulated on the side of character versus reputation.
over pendulated on caring what people thought about me because I was the CEO
Oh,
the direction of the mission and John and that kind of stuff. It felt like it really mattered a lot more at the beginning. And so I was quick to challenge, quick to confront. I was very unpopular, by the way, by most of our people. And then over time, like in the present, I'm surrounded by this robust leadership team. We've got years of track record behind us. Um, there's even though there's consternation and strife and struggle in the village from time to time, and we work stuff out. There's no risk of us going off track anymore. There's too many people with their eyes on it. So anymore, I just let people think what they want to think about me. I let people think what they want to think about John. I let people think what they want to think about the mission or how we do stuff. And we and I have plenty of critics, and where once it was important to me to like set the record straight and that kind of thing. It's a new season now. Either I was dysfunctional before and overpendulated, or I was exactly what we needed. But regardless, it's now a new season. We have this robust leadership team. You're a great example. And I don't need to keep an eye on everything. I don't need to correct everything. I don't need to challenge everything. I don't need to worry about being overwhelmed. Because back in the day, 3 or 4 people would show up with a different opinion. Everybody starts going, "Oh, well, maybe that." Like, whoa, whoa, whoa. It's like herding. It felt like herding kittens in a sort of a weird psychological, emotional way, kind of thing. But I really have almost no attention on that now. My word this year is grace, and it's a really good word for me. And, uh, in the past, I've been, John said, which I agree with. I've been a little overpendulated on justice and wrath. So I was the guy that you can talk shit to John, but don't bring that to Kirk.
yeah. You're like, I'll take this one.
Yes.
Roll.
So anymore, I give it almost no thought or energy, but that definitely was not always the case.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen even um with myself so much with caring so much about what other people think that I
Yeah.
think it's good sometimes to overpendulate to the other side so you can come into balance. And
Yeah.
yeah, I appreciate the space that we're able to even do that here for one.
Yeah.
Um, so next question is the old self, dying to the old self and coming into the true self, the true identity. And how do you stand firm inside of that new identity, even when you've already had people define you in your environment as the old self?
Well, I do run into that. First of all, I want to challenge the idea of true identity. Um, for me, it's an ever evolving thing. Like I was who I needed to be in the first couple of years. I was who I needed to be in the next couple, 2 or 3 years. I am who I need to be currently. And so, like, what's important to me is the mission and the covenant I have to support the mission. So I don't really have a lot of attention on who I really am. I have made the decision that who I am is support for this mission, right? So, like, whatever's up next and I'm capable of, you know, I don't I don't need to follow my dreams. I don't need to share my gifts. That's not my thing. My thing is what I promised was to have this mission succeed. And so that I didn't say have this mission succeed as long as I can follow my dreams and get my gifts. That sentence was shorter. And so it's a new season. We're all learning how to be graceful. We're learning how to let God direct us. Um, and um, so I don't know what or who my true self is. I don't have any attention on it. I live a life of bliss and contribution, and you know, being a part of this incredible experiment. Like I called the United States an experiment. You could call this an experiment. Yeah, we're going to create heaven on earth, and we're going to follow God, and we're gonna we're gonna model a new way to be in the world. Like, hey, hey, how are we gonna do that? Well, I don't really know. But okay, perfect. I don't really care about that. I'll bet. Let's do it. You know. And so now this is a far departure from how I started. I was Mr. Mr. Strategy and Mr. Plans and Mr. Integrity and Mr. Rigor and all that kind of stuff, which has served me well and served the mission well. But I'm clear it's not our primary thing. Every now and then, it's good to have somebody who's willing to challenge anybody and stand for rigor. And no, that's not what we said. This is what we said, and draw lines. And it's very easy for me to be that person. I'm at this point, I've had a lot of practice. But now, who I am, my true identity is someone who sits and observes and listens and gives space and lets the flower unfold and let my leadership team stand up and develop themselves. And every now and then I'll put in a little something, but I always try to use the lightest touch possible in favor of, like I've kind of feel like I've had my day. I've had my victories. I've got all the, if I had a, if I had a trophy cabinet, I would think I'd be pretty satisfied with what was in it. And it's now time for the next generation and the next people to be the pointy tip of the spear and get to experience what it is to have miracles happen around them and have people wake up and grow up and heal up and become great leaders around them. Like I've had that experience a few times now, and um, so so um, yeah, so the true self, I don't know. I think there's always sort of the next season, next season could be next week or in 10 years from now or after I'm dead, who knows? But whenever it is, I'm pretty certain there'll be one. And when that next season comes, I will reorganize myself to prepare for that. But in this season, I'm listening, I'm observing, I'm pretty quiet, um, um, uh, uh, introspective, reflective. Um, yeah, I'll leave it there.
I appreciate that. And for the people that are watching that are going on this journey, John talks about the 3 U's, and it's the ideal, then the real, and then the true self. But you're taking it almost to the other level, like you're allowing yourself to just be a vessel for what's needed in the moment of what God's asking you to be in that moment. And maybe that is the true self, like it has me thinking in a whole different way. Like, so
Yeah, yeah. I'm not completely at the source of that conversation that John's been having recently, so um, I could be sort of out of step a little bit, but yeah, I've always just wanted to serve, and like I, the blessing as I see it that I get to live in is finally I get to serve, and I don't really have to worry about anything else, you know. And inside of that context, I'm not too I don't really have any attention on how I get to serve, just that I do get to serve. It's impactful, and I prefer to do stuff that other people can't do. That just seems like efficient to me. Let us all do what we're uniquely qualified for. So I'll look around and whatever the hardest thing looks like, or the most subtle thing, or the thing that requires most experience, I just kind of assume that's kind of mine unless someone else pops up. And for me, that's a blessing. That's not a weight I carry. That's a blessing.
yeah. Well, okay, here's another question. And you mentioned it earlier about consistency. And sometimes people can get lost inside of their routines, and their discipline and their rules and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how do you know when you're being congruent inside of your consistency?
Um, um, I talk about following the fruit. You know them by their fruit. I talk about following the fruit. Um, like the visionary program is a good example. So we led 3.0 a bunch of times. It's a 12 week, 12 weeks? Yeah, 12 week. That's right. Yes. Gosh. It's a 12-week program. And I don't know if we led it 20 times. I don't know how many times we led it, but a bunch of times over several years. And, it's great. I mean, it's great. It's foundational. It's really great. You know, it is a whole complete thing and it's transformational and it's divine. It's really powerful. But over the years, so I was just in a track of, okay, this is the leadership program and just lead it over and over again in the knowledge that, if you go through a program like this and you give it your undivided attention and do all the assignments and do everything just as designed, you're probably going to get about 10 or 15% of it. People don't like, I suspect, I didn't like hearing this when I first heard it. I was kind of offended. But over the years, I've definitely found this to be true. So for me, having someone come to it, 7 or 8, 10 times made perfect sense to me, right? For other people, I think it got a little tedious or got a little stale. And so I didn't really see any of that for a long time. And all of a sudden I did see it. So I perhaps was in that kind of a rut you were talking about of just, you know, doing the thing really well over and over again, not really thinking, hey, as the seasons change, is it time for something else? Is it time to turn a page and have a new chapter? And so I don't remember what the catalyst was, probably people talking to me about it. And if I was like, oh, let's do another one. Then we did 4.0 and that went really well. Then we do 5.0 and we're coming to the end of 5.0 and we might do a 6.0. I've got what I need to get started and do a 6.0, or we might go back to 3.0 and update it. I don't know. But that for me was an example of doing something well and doing something profitable, profitable and providing value for our community. Um, and at the same time, I think I was also in a rut. And probably someone talking to me, probably my wife, got me to see something different and then actually sat down one day that was really beautiful and working to create something else that turned out to be even more beautiful. So that might pass what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. It's don't let your last blessing block you from your next one blessing.
Yeah. Yesterday's breakthrough becomes tomorrow's ego trip.
Yeah. Oh man.
Obviously, I would know that.
I remember setting down things that were really great and they're very impactful. There's a lot of people that were showing up and then handing it over to other people. And that's a beautiful blessing. But when it's high and you're inside of that and it's like, what? Like, I don't want to give this up. I want to keep going with it, but
Yeah. Well, I'm about to do it again with the visionary program the week that my wife and I are going on vacation. And so after the Tuesday after the last class, I actually want you and Christy to lead a conversation for the future of the visionary program. Do we continue it? Do we end it? Do we do a 6.0? Do we go back to 3.0? Do we take a break? Does Kirk lead it? Does someone else lead it? So I'm putting the whole thing on the altar. I'm putting it in the hands of the community. And when I get back, I'll receive my instructions and take it from there.
That's, yeah, that's gnarly, man.
My wife isn't quite as excited about it as I am, but I'm trusting that she'll get on board.
Well, that's surrender and trust, and faith. Yeah. While we're on the topic of fruit, What fruit have you seen that when you live in full congruency,
Yeah.
um, and what fruit have you seen when you don't?
Well, the fruit I get to live inside of with the level of congruence I have, and I'm not saying my congruence is perfect by any means, but at the level that I have, I get to be, I get to, first of all, I got to be John's partner in the early days, be the CEO of Earthquake University, and be a substantial part of something that I really, really like, that really inspires me, that I'm convinced will be a blessing to humanity. And it's been an epic adventure. It hasn't always been fun or easy, but it has been epic. And so I wouldn't be the person that John could trust and work with had I not already developed that inside of me to whatever degree I did. Secondly, I would not have had any interest in John had I not clearly seen that in him. He just would have been some dude who could put together a fun 45 minutes, and I would have watched it, done my thing, and gone home. So uh, the the partnership that happened wouldn't have happened otherwise. Um, when I'm not congruent, when I have slips, or certainly in earlier days, things stop working really fast. Things unwind really quick. Like if I talk about grace and kindness and I'm rough and judgmental with people, the ripples are catastrophic. The consequences are huge because not only does that thing not go well, but now I've indicated that I'm not who I say I am. And people who have put trust in me or John or this mission and what we're up to have really good reason to question everything. And so, in past environments when I didn't, I wasn't being what I talked about, I wasn't behaving like I talked about, things unraveled really quickly. And in and then the other side, I've been through really tough times where people had every reason to question everything, but people stood firm, and we worked together because of their experience of mine and John's congruency. So it's everything. Like congruency, being at the source of, like, actually, like, knowing why we're doing what we're doing, and that what we're doing is based on inspiration, not fear or judgment or anger. Um, this mission, this village would not be here. So for me, it's not just a good thing to remember every now and then. It's absolutely mission critical for what we're doing here. Because what we're doing here is like it's very easy to judge and criticize. It's very easy to observe what we're doing and miss everything. People don't see us for who we are; they see us for who they are, and they look through their own filter at us, and they see themselves. And mostly, what they see is uh, is uh, is what their intention would be if they were doing what we're doing. So if I'm confronting dysfunction, oh, great example. I was walking by someone here at the village, and he seemed really low energy, kind of slumped over, shuffling along. And this person is usually pretty upbeat. And I said, "Hey, are you okay?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm okay." I said, "Just because I'm not smiling, people think I'm not okay." I was like, "All right, no problem." Not bad. Uh, but if he if he had said what I said, he would be judging purely on the lack of the smile. But I had no intention on the lack of the smile. I could feel his heart was heavy. His body language was different. His movement was different. His face was different. Not just the lack of the smile, but he looked heavy and mournful. And it wasn't about, I expect people to have a smile on their face, to be like a, I don't want people to wear a mask. I don't want people to pretend to be okay. I'm not interested in developing people's people pleaser. That's so he missed everything. He missed who I actually am and what I actually stand for because he was seeing himself in me. If he saw somebody without a smile, he might, you know, so what he was accusing me of was what he would be doing if he was doing what I was doing. And so that's just a really great example. So, people show up and without the eyes to see and the ears to hear and the heart to feel, their immediate conclusions are based on what they would be up to if they were doing what they observed us doing, right? And so that's just part of the deal. And some people are going to see us and some people are not. I think there is a quote. I don't know if I'll have it right. You might have it better than me, but Jesus talked in parables that were difficult to understand. And I think someone, said, well, why don't you talk more simply or something? And he said, let the people with ears to hear, hear. Like if what I get from that is if you can't hear it yet, you're not ready yet. And if you can hear it, you are ready yet. So we don't change what we say. We say what we say, and we let people either rise up to hear it or already hear it, or if it's not for them, then it's not for them, and we're not trying to give something to somebody that it's not that if it's not for them, we're not trying to give it to them. So I might have got off on the track.
No, it's perfect. Uh, what do you do to stay grounded when you are being like attacked, like spiritually attacked or pressured?
Um, I've got a lot of practice with this. I'm handling it a lot better than I used to. I used to be pretty. I used to take a hard line when I felt like people were attacking the mission or undermining the mission or spreading false, information or gossiping or trauma bonding about us, whatever. And really, it just made it worse, probably on every occasion. So my makeup is John once called me a threat crusher. If I see a threat, I'm kind of like my dog Kira. She's a Doberman, and she's really sweet and loving. But Dobermans are built; they're bred for personal protection, so they're really sweet with their owner. But if they perceive there's a threat, there's like a switch that goes off, and she barks to be let out, and she wants to go out and find where the threat is and handle it, right? And so that's kind of my makeup. I'm kind of like a Doberman. I'm all fun and games and sweet and chill until I perceive that someone's out to get us. And then my desire is, hey, listen, why? There's no reason to wait to let them come to us. We don't need to talk about it for 30 minutes. Let me just go handle the thing, couple of minutes, come back, listen down, have a cup of coffee. Now that doesn't work, but that makes sense to me initially, right? The threat's coming my way. Let me go
Doesn't
ahead
work.
and handle it. Yes, it doesn't work, but for a few moments, it still sort of makes sense to me. And over the years, I understand that it doesn't work. So uh, I just um, I just let it roll off my back, and time answers all questions. The truth doesn't need to be defended. I'll let my character speak. I'll let my fruits and results speak for me. I don't need to at this point. I mean, I'm kind of in a privileged position in a way that I have many years of results behind me, and people, "Hey, you're not a leader." Hey, no, hey. First of all, the votes have been cast. That's already been decided. You're welcome to have whatever opinion you want. I got accused of that this morning of being a terrible leader, and I just you know, um, um, unmoved. I keep my eye on what I'm here for. I keep my eye on my confident. I keep my eye on God and the direction they're moving in. Keep an eye on um, delivering what I promise, handling the things that I'm responsible for with great care and commitment, and just let people kind of do what they need to do. There are limits. Like I will step up and draw a line or be forceful or big or strong with somebody if it's absolutely necessary. But that threshold of absolutely necessary is getting higher and higher over the years.
And there's this distinction that you've kind of created, and it's called the long game. And
Yes.
can you distinguish that for us? Because I think it's perfectly tie into this.
I yeah, a really good example is when I first met John, and he used to have this little gathering at his home in Austin. Like that was our offering. 20 people would show up in his living room once a week on Thursday, I think. It was called the Spiritual Capitalist Mastermind. And um, we would get there. My wife and I would drive an hour and a half to get there. And it never started on time. It never ended on time. It's just, whatever. John and Mel is super flowy and super chill. And I'm just kind of watching the whole thing. And then there was no culture of integrity. John is a highly integrous person, but he also was just kind of let people, especially back in the day, he was quite, in my assessment, a little overpendulated. I think he would agree, a little overpendulated to, oh yeah, just let people do whatever they want. He was kind of like the substitute teacher. He shows up, everybody starts shooting rubber bands all over the room, and then the real teacher walks in and everybody behaves. That's kind of the dynamic between me and John. I would walk in, all of a sudden everybody
That's
would
actually
sit
a
back
really
and be
good
quiet.
picture. That's
Yeah.
a really, yeah.
I'd be coming in, I'd hear people doing all kinds of stuff. I'd walk in, everybody's like quiet, behave, like, that's not what I heard. Anyway, that's an exaggeration. But point being is, I was really clear that a higher level of integrity was necessary for what we're embarking on. I was also really clear that if I was a righteous asshole about it and started wagging my finger at people and telling people how to be, that it would go very poorly. And so so long game is now enter the short game is, hey, what did you do? Integrity. Here's what integrity is. Rah! So I was really clear that was not going to work, especially a bunch of all flowy people. They're just waiting for me. They're just waiting to rebel against something like that. Right? That's just how my father talked to me, or whatever. So I just started really getting like lovingly, but okay, John, it's time to start. Okay, that's what we said. Like, you go, okay, okay, start. And then when we get towards the end, I started the first time I held up a sign that said 30 minutes when we're 30 minutes from the end. And we had no conversation about it. It's kind of like, okay. And then 15 minutes later, sign goes up 15 minutes. And then 5 minutes later, sign goes up 5 minutes. 5 minutes later, sign goes up 5 minutes. And then 5 minutes later, time. And he got that I was kind of bringing him to the landing zone. Okay, here we go. Boom. And he got on board with it. Like he saw the wisdom of it, and we started in beginning on time and ending on time. Now that's on one hand, that's no big deal, but on the other hand, that was the beginning of integrity being present in our culture. And I just always showed up on time. Whatever the thing was, I was always on time. My wife and I would always. My wife and I shared. She shared my commitment to integrity, and we would just always be on time. And whatever we promised, we did it. Just like that. And after a while, months, people started to notice. I think John's mother, like Mama Carol, like, oh, that Kirk and Donna, they're always 5 minutes early, no matter what we're doing. They like she got it, and then she started talking about it. Other people started talking about it. All of a sudden, it very slowly became a thing. Now, I didn't jump all over it. I was like, oh yeah, because I was, I didn't want to start a war about it, right? And now integrity is like we talk about it all the time. It's no big deal. It's in, but the beginning, year 6 months to a year, it was very slow progress. Now I can get things in much easier. Our culture's really set up for it and that kind of thing. But that's definitely an example of playing the long game where I'm very certain the short game would have been not only ineffective, but it would have pushed things in the other direction. So I see things all the time now that look to me like, oh, I could have a conversation with that person. That doesn't really work. Blah, 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 blah. But I just kind of like let it in and kind of, sometimes things work out by themselves and sometimes they don't. And sometimes people have a breakthrough and I think I could have a conversation with them and sometimes they don't. But now I'm much slower to intercede. I'm much slower to offer something. I'm definitely much slower to draw lines and um, um, be big with people. And what I've noticed is the slower I go and the quieter I speak and the more gentle and kind I am, the easier it is for people to receive me. And so, yeah, the long game is can be a little frustrating because it takes longer, but um, um, it creates a much stronger foundation. People convinced against their will are of the same opinion still. And an organization I was once in, convincing people against their will was part of how we did business. And so I'm really clear of the fruits of that. You can get people to comply for a minute or two, but it doesn't last long. And when it unwinds dramatically. People disappear without saying goodbye and never come back, or they disappear and speak poorly of the organization and that kind of stuff. So yeah, long game, good stuff.
And it goes in alignment with what you were saying previously about Landmark. They were not practicing what they were preaching.
Yeah.
And so you were practicing it and not preaching it. And then they come to you and they're asking you, like,
Yes.
hey,
Yes. Yeah.
it might
Yeah.
take a little bit longer, but you're
Yeah.
showing up as it. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And every now and then people would kind of pull me aside and ask me questions about it. I would kind of try to hide my smile. Why, yes, well, yes, I do have a minute to discuss that.
I love that. Um, well, I'm at this space now, like I'm in a lot of appreciation and gratitude for the space that's held here at Earth Waking for so many souls and so many people to walk into this. Um, I think this is probably the most important distinction that we have here, and it's about being the real deal, saying and being and practicing everything that you never got in your life.
Yeah.
Like how can you be the person that you needed in the past? I think you told me that one time. Like,
Yeah. I think I said that in reference to I'm kind of the dad here in the sense, like especially earlier. I'm the one who draws lines and confronts people and lets them know when they've gone too far. And, you know, um, 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 but I never had a positive male role model in my life. And so it's interesting because a lot of people are incomplete with their dads, and I get all that energy, never having, never having a dad. And then never being one either, right? So it's very, at first it was like, no, you don't understand, like, but it doesn't matter. Yeah. So, but so the healing part of it for me is I get to be that positive masculine role model that I never had, and so it's easy for me to find how to be because it's what I so much wanted and needed as a child, as a young adult. So it's you know, yeah,
and it's so needed out there in the world right now. Like we get to be that person now
yeah,
for ourselves that are in the past, like say that thing, lend a hand. Like, yeah.
stop being difficult.
Instead of waiting for somebody to do it for you, you can actually be that person, like the person
Yes,
that you
yes.
admire so much. Oh
Yeah,
man.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Kirk. I really appreciate this. And again, if you guys are watching this, uh, VLP Visionary Leadership Program is highly recommended. These distinctions, these awarenesses, you get to walk closer to who you truly are, who you get to be for yourself, for the world, to be the adult to that inner child that's inside, and
Nice.
let that have a voice from the inside out, and be the real deal. So if you'd like
And
to
I've got a
support,
song called Real Deal.
there it is. Yeah. So
I'm
that'll
always
be
plugging my songs.
in the chat. Yeah, I know. I see you do. You always plug in your songs. But they're amazing. They're really transformational. These lyrics, like they do uplift and support what we're doing here, and they're very transformational. So that link is inside of the description box
Awesome.
below. And thanks again for watching, and come back next week for our final episode. It is going to be a really good one. It's on contributions. So I'll see you guys next week. Ciao.